believed she had found peace after the stormy years with Ridge. That house, whose walls had witnessed countless breakups and reunions, was now filled with light and smiles. But sometimes peace is a thin knife hidden in a layer of silk, because while Brooke enjoyed the feeling of coming home, Taylor chose to move on. No longer the woman who held on to the old image, Taylor found in Deacon something she once thought no longer existed: trust. A seemingly innocuous encounter, just a cup of coffee, a light touch on the shoulder, a look too long, but that moment opened the door to an unforeseen bond. Deacon was more serious than ever, his eyes no longer the joke of someone who was used to being lost. He wanted the real Taylor. And Taylor, who was too used to healing others, began to fear her own feelings. She wanted to love again, but her heart was so broken that all trust had to be paid for. When Brooke found out, the whole world around her froze. Part of her wanted to stay silent, keep the peace, protect the fragile happiness she had just regained. But the other part, the survival instinct of someone who had fought tirelessly to keep Ridge, screamed for revenge. Could she sit still while the man she loved was dragged back into the vortex of the past, when Taylor's shadow still lingered like a curse in every breath? Anger, fear, and pride mixed together into a dangerous chaos. Brooke felt threatened, not only by Taylor, but also by her own weakness, something she always hid behind a perfect smile. But before Brooke could act, another storm arose. Sheila, the name feared by all of Los Angeles, appeared at Taylor's clinic. She was nominally a patient, but her gaze could not hide the sinister seething within. Deacon, the man who had been Sheila's only salvation, was now at the center of a new war. Taylor had accidentally touched the forbidden zone of a wounded animal. When Sheila realized Taylor was planning to marry Deacon, something inside her broke. A woman like Sheila did not know how to lose in silence. She had not only lost her man, but also her belonging, her pride, her existence. The encounter in the clinic had begun with words as soft as glass, but soon the atmosphere was thick, as if it were about to explode. Taylor still believed in reason, in the possibility of dialogue, but she did not understand that Sheila had not come to talk. Her eyes quickly darted to the desk, where surgical scissors glinted under the light. Taylor saw it, but it was too late to back away. Sheila's madness exploded like a poisonous wind, without reason, without end. The scissors dug into flesh like a torn song of hatred. Blood spattered the white walls, bright red streaks forming spirals, terrifyingly beautiful. Taylor collapsed, her breathing ragged, and Sheila looked around coldly. Her every move was as calculated as if it were surgery. She wiped away all traces, turned off the security cameras, and then wiped the data from a hard drive. No trace, no witnesses. When the door closed, all that remained was the smell of blood and the ticking of the clock on the wall, counting down to something worse. In the days that followed, the news of Taylor's disappearance sent everything crashing down like dominoes. Brooke was stunned, Deacon was panicking, and Sheila, the sinner, stood in front of the mirror, smirking at her own reflection. She knew she had crossed the line of no return, but that didn't scare her. On the contrary, deep down, Sheila felt like she had regained control. She believed that Deacon would come to her, not out of love, but out of fear of loss. A wounded person will always return to the familiar, even if it's poisonous. Brooke, meanwhile, began to suspect that Taylor's disappearance was more than an accident. The fragmented clues, Sheila's contradictory words, and the way Deacon avoided her gaze made Brooke sense a shadow creeping into their world. She was no longer the vulnerable woman. A new fire burns inside Brooke, the fire of the betrayed, the one who has survived every plot. But is she strong enough to face the demon called Sheila this time, when Ridge, the only person she trusted, is fading away because of guilt and chaos? Deacon lives in a state of obsession, having lost the woman he wanted to save and being bound by the woman he cannot escape. He sees Taylor in his dreams, hears her call in the night, feels her hand still on his shoulder. But in real life, there is only Sheila, smiling in the dark, touching him as if all sins can be erased with flesh. The The torment kills Deacon every day, and he begins to lose the line between guilt and redemption. Meanwhile, the police find no trace of Taylor. The clinic is clean as if no one has ever been injured there. There was only one strange detail, a small streak of blood on the family photo frame on the table where Taylor had kept her daughter. The streak of blood was like a final message, a gaze that hovered between two worlds, between the living and the dead. Ridge, though he tried to deny it, still felt an instinctive fear when he saw Brooke change. She was no longer just the gentle wife, but someone secretly preparing for a war. There was something cold in Brooke's eyes now, something that only those who had lost too much could carry. And somewhere, Sheila was watching them, from afar, in silence, with a faint smile on her lips. She knew the game wasn't over. Because in this world, blood never disappears. It just changes form, from a wound on the skin to a crack in the heart. And as night fell over Los Angeles, the distant lights cast a shadow on the glass of the abandoned clinic where the bloodstains had yet to be cleaned. A gust of wind blew by, tilting the frame slightly, revealing a small piece of paper stuck to the back, scribbled in blood. "She's still alive." The question remained, if Taylor was indeed alive, then who was standing next to Deacon now? Ridge sat alone in his living room when the phone rang in the middle of the night, the dim yellow light casting a shadow over his tired face. He hadn't expected the call to end at all, a cold, emotionless call, a few words that would shatter his world. Taylor was dead. The police had found her body in a remote area near the Malibu coast, where the waves crashed and the wind blew like the whispers of a ghost. Ridge was speechless, all the sounds around him drowned out. He couldn't understand what had happened. Taylor couldn't have disappeared like that, couldn't have ended her life alone and in cold blood. She had been stronger than anyone he knew, had fought for happiness, had saved him from the abyss. But now, all that remained was a forensic report and a photo of her half-covered body, where dried blood lay like black petals on her neck. When Brooke heard the news, she just looked at Ridge silently. No tears, no words. Because there are pains that cannot be cried, can only be swallowed. Let it bleed slowly with each breath. But in that silence is a storm of doubt. She knows Sheila was at the clinic that day, knows Deacon avoided her when she asked about Taylor, knows all the pieces point in the same direction. But no one can touch Sheila, no evidence, no witnesses. Sheila still appears in front of everyone, innocent eyes, fake trembling voice, sobbing when hearing the news of Taylor's death. "She was my friend," she said, and the whole world shuddered because it was the smoothest lie the devil had ever told. The police found some faint traces in the clinic, but Sheila had erased all the facts. Security cameras were broken, data was deleted, even the fingerprints on the doorknob were from former patients. They thought it was a stranger attack or a staged suicide. Ridge didn't believe it. He couldn't believe it. Taylor wouldn't kill himself out of love or frustration. He felt like someone was squeezing his heart with an invisible hand, like Sheila was still somewhere around him, watching his every reaction, his every tear, just for her own sick pleasure. Deacon was devastated. He withdrew from it all, locked himself in the old bar. Every night, he opened a bottle of whiskey, stared into space, and listened to Taylor in his head. He recalled every detail of their last meeting, every word, every look. Guilt consumed him like a sickness. He knew something was wrong. He had seen Sheila leave the clinic, but she had lied to him that Taylor had left first. He believed it because he still felt a little pity for Sheila, someone who had been abandoned by the world like he had. Now he knew that pity had killed Taylor. Brooke took action. She no longer believed in justice or the law. She believed in instinct, the instinct of someone who had faced Sheila more than once, had seen the way her eyes went from gentle to crazy in the blink of an eye. Brooke went to the police, asked to reopen the case, but was refused. No evidence, no reason. Everything was sealed. So she investigated on her own, following every lead. A pair of surgical scissors was missing from the inventory. A security guard said he heard strange noises that night, but didn't dare report them. A nearby traffic camera captured a hooded woman leaving the area at 10:47 p.m. a gate that closely resembled Sheila's. It was all fragments, but Brooke obsessively pieced them together, knowing that if one piece was out of place, the truth would be buried forever. Ridge, meanwhile, began to sink into the abyss. He went to the clinic, stood in the cold room where Taylor had been killed. The light from the window reflected off the floor like a faint bloodstain. He knelt down, put his hand on the desk where she had collapsed, and felt his palm tremble. The question echoed in his mind. Why was she there alone? Who made her believe that love could save a demon? He began to look back at it all. The times he left Taylor, the times he hurt her for Brooke, the times he believed in peace while she fought the darkness. And he realized that sometimes it wasn't the scissors that killed a person, it was the words left behind. Sheila, though she tried to act innocent, was haunted by fear. She dreamed of Taylor standing in the clinic, her eyes empty, her hands still bloody. She heard Taylor breathing in the dark, felt the cold on her neck every time a wind blew. But Sheila wasn't the type to repent. She feared being caught, not guilt. She erased all the evidence, threatened Deacon to keep quiet, and then continued living as if nothing had happened. But deep down, Sheila knew one thing. This silence wouldn't last forever. Once the secret was exposed, everything would collapse, and she would burn with everything she had tried to hold on to. In the months that followed, Taylor's death became a collective wound in the city. A memorial service was held, but Ridge did not show up. He disappeared, leaving behind a single note. If justice cannot find the truth, I will find it myself. People said he had left Los Angeles, traveling to places where Sheila had lived, hidden and killed. Some said he was hunting her. Others said he was simply trying to see Taylor again in a different way, in a fit of madness. Brooke watched from afar, feeling things spiraling out of control. She knew Ridge was doing something dangerous, knew Sheila would not let it go. But she also knew that this time no one could stop him. Because for Ridge, losing Taylor was not just losing the person he loved, but also losing the last shred of humanity in himself. One evening, Deacon received an anonymous letter. It contained just a few lines. I know what she did. Come to the place we agreed to meet. There was no signature, but the writing was slanted and shaky, exactly like Taylor's. Deacon was stunned. Was someone playing a sick game with him? Or was Taylor really alive, as the bloody note had suggested? He took the letter to Brooke, and they both realized maybe the secret Sheila thought buried was still breathing, somewhere in the dark. The police reopened the case, this time with new evidence. Strange DNA found in Sheila's car, matching the sample at the crime scene. But when they arrived, she was gone, leaving behind an empty house, a broken mirror, and the words written in lipstick, "If you find me, it will be too late." Ridge returned just as the news broke. He saw Sheila's photo on the screen, her smile still proud amid the haze of the past. He said nothing, just closed his eyes, inhaled deeply. Outside the window, it began to rain, each drop as heavy as a memory. And when the police found the burned-out car at the bottom of the cliff a few weeks later, with an unidentifiable body inside, the world fell silent.